Namaskar and welcome to beautiful Rishikesh. We are here in the home of yoga. They call it the yoga capital of the world, and the story is that this is the place where yoga was birthed. This is the place where the Vedas were cognized. This is the place where all of the information and the wisdom of yoga comes from.
And if you're not familiar with Rishikesh or India, it really is at the foothills of the Himalayas. So right up north in Rishikesh, and it's incredible up here.
Yeah, and you can see the mountains behind us. It's just like the most pristine. We're in the middle of the national park. The entire city is completely meat and alcohol free. So it's a clean city. And it's just such a potent energy.
Truly.
And so whilst we're here, we thought we would just do a podcast every single day. And along with that podcast, we'll have a practice that you can do. So each day for 7 days, you'll have a 20-minute practice to do, and then you'll have this little podcast snippet to delve into a little bit of knowledge.
Yes, especially surrounding the practice that we're doing. So you can get quite an intellectual, quite a logical grasp or understanding of concepts that we're going to chat about. And then you can also get quite a physical and felt experience, embodied understanding of the concepts as well.
Yeah. And so today we wanted to start from kind of the beginning. And it's so funny because when you come to Rishikesh, obviously everyone speaks Hindi, everyone speaks a little bit of English, and there's a lot of travelers that speak English. But the first thing that you notice is that nobody says hello. They don't say, hey, how you doing? They say namaskar, or they say namaste. And I think that's so interesting, especially those two words. Namaskar we often use at the end of a yoga class to kind of like close out the practice. And namaskar you might be familiar with from Surya Namaskar, the dynamic asana sequence that so many of us are so familiar with. So we wanted to talk about those two words today and what the difference is, because they're very similar, and what the meaning of those two words truly is. And so let's start with the difference between, because I'm sure that most of you have heard the word namaste before. It's super popular. Namaskar may be a little more obscure. So the difference between the two is in the root words. So in Sanskrit, there's kind of like root syllables, and the syllables have a specific meaning. And so the syllable namas, it means, it's the same as namaha, I bow to you. It's not even I bow to you, it's just I bow. So it's this acknowledgement of me bowing down.
And bowing is really a sign of devotion, of honoring, of respect.
Yeah, it's very respectful, and these two greetings, namaste or namaskar, are considered quite formal and respectful greetings. You could think of it in English as like saying, good day, sir. Good day, sir. Something like that. And so the second syllable, so in namaste, te is the second word, which means to you. So I bow to you, I honor you. And namaskar, the second word in there is kara, and kara means to do. It's a doing word, or to act. And so namaskar is the action of bowing, or the action of devotion. And I find that so interesting in the way that we use the word namaskar to describe a specific type of asana sequence. For us, like many people are familiar with Surya Namaskar, but there's so many different namaskar sequences: Chandra Namaskar, Jala Namaskar, namaskar sequences to kind of honor the different energies. Surya Namaskar being quite fiery, it's to honor the sun. And so it takes on that quality of heat and warmth. If it was a Chandra Namaskar, it would be a Namaskar to honor the moon, so it would be cooling and calming and for the evening time. And so Namaskar, on the whole, in relation to our asana practice, we could look at as this dynamic movement between asanas or postures. We, with the breath, move from one posture to another posture, to another posture, to another posture. And it will usually loop around in a circle like this. Surya Namaskar, you start in Tadasana, arms up, inhale, exhale, fold down, inhale, half lift, exhale, plank pose. And so we can take that concept of uniting body, mind, and breath in this dynamic way of moving, and we can call it namaskar. And so we can say that the meaning of namaskar, and this is what separates yoga from exercise, is that the intention through which we practice namaskar is a devotional intention. We bow down to the processes of the earth. We bow down to the sun, and we honor that process of uplifting the solar energy. We bow down to the moon, and we honor the process of the uplifting of the lunar energy.
And really is this like essence of surrender and almost like getting out of your way in terms of the logical mind, the thinking, the doing of our modern day world, and kind of pushing that aside for just a moment and moving into a state of deep surrender, honoring yourself, honoring those around you, and honoring everything within.
And honoring the processes of your physical body.
Totally.
I think that's the most beautiful thing about connecting to the breath in this way, is once you really start to get a hold on the practice, you can get out of your mind and you understand the postures. All that's left is this union of breath and mind and body, but they all move as one, right? You move with the breath. Inhale, arms come up. Exhale, arms come down. It becomes like it taps you into that flow state. And in that flow state, we're so connected, innately connected to our deeper nature. And that's what makes yoga practice, really.
For sure.
Yeah. Anything you want to add to that?
I guess maybe we could chat about our take on namaskars a little bit, and like how we have started to move into like some creative sequencing of namaskars.
Yeah, cool. That's a good point. That was where I wanted to go as well. So I wanted to talk about the history of namaskar. Where did namaskar come from in the terms of asana?
Like Surya Namaskar.
We know that the word namaskar comes as a greeting, just as namaste does, but Surya Namaskar, where did that come from? And so Surya Namaskar has been a practice since ancient times. It's kind of like the original yoga asana. It was practiced in many of the different traditions as kind of like a way to connect and a way to exercise in a spiritual way. And within the last 100 years, Namaskar was discovered by, or Surya Namaskar was discovered by Krishnamacharya, who we've spoken about quite a few times on the podcast. He's kind of known as the father of modern yoga. And he made Surya Namaskar kind of a central pillar of the practice. And his students took that out to the world, and Surya Namaskar became the most famous sequence of yoga postures in the world by far.
Totally.
And if you land at, what airport is it?
Delhi.
In Delhi airport. If you land in Delhi airport, when you come to India, you'll see this like bronze, beautiful statue of someone performing Surya Namaskar. It's kind of like a cultural icon here. And when people think of yoga, they think of Surya Namaskar. It's kind of like become synonymous with asana practice. And so it's been practiced for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. And then in the last 100 years, it's become really, really popular as a way to bring
yoga to the West?
Yeah, well, I want to say like nourishment to the body and warmth into the body. It's often recommended for people, if they do one yoga sequence, they do Surya Namaskar 10 times a day or something like that. And for a lot of people, it's part of their daily practice. And so, go on.
I was just going to say, I think it's powerful because, in public classes or online classes, there's so many different movements, there's so many different asanas you can do, there's so many different variations of things that you can do, and just understanding and getting a grasp on Surya Namaskar allows a lot of yoga practitioners to begin to take yoga into their own hands and begin to practice at home with no guidance, etc. And I think that's a good purpose of Surya Namaskar. It's like this bridge between learning a sequence of yoga asanas and being able to implement that in your life without any guidance or without any classes or studios.
Yeah, and it's something that you can continue to build on time and time and time again. There's so many different ways that you can deepen your experience of it and make it stronger or make it softer,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And so what you might have noticed in this morning's practice was that we did a namaskar sequence where we moved with the breath, inhale one way, exhale the other way, inhale one way, exhale the other way. But we didn't do Surya Namaskar. We did what we've been kind of teaching recently in our trainings as a creative namaskar. So we take the concept of namaskar, one breath per movement. Breath contains the movement. The inhale moves you into expansion, the exhale moves you into contraction. And we can take that and add different asanas in a creative way to bring a dynamic movement practice into our body. And so what we've decided is that Surya Namaskar is repetitive.
Yeah.
And our bodies in a lot of sense thrive on what's the opposite of repetition?
Randomness?
Not randomness, but variety.
Variety, yeah.
So if you can move your body in many different various ways, you'll continue to keep a healthy range of motion.
Yeah.
If you move your body in the same way, so you've got your whole spine that has so many vertebrae, and you move on just one joint in the same way day in and day out, what you'll end up doing is wearing out that joint. And so by creating new and different namaskar sequences, we can bring some more variety into our practice. And why we chose to use the word namaskar for this style of creative practice is that it honors the traditional understanding of this style of practice. We work with the body, we work with the breath, and we work with the mind in a way that's dynamic, in a way that honors the physical process and the wider process of nature. And we do it from this place of namas, from devotion, right? We're bowing down and we're allowing our analytical and ego mind to get out of the way so that we can do our practice and we can connect deeper.
And I think it's also important to note, like specifically the sequence that we practiced this morning, is that we didn't throw in too many different random movements or shapes. We still work within the framework that we share, that being like the prana vayus, the energies that we cultivate throughout practice being such a centerpiece of how we share. And instead of just incorporating lots of different movements and lots of different energy movements in the body, we focus specifically on one or two. And you may have noticed that in our Surya Namaskar, our Namaskar sequence, that the main focus was on back bending and expansion and opening, as well as, of course, like extensions to combat that and forward folds as necessary in the sequence. But I just think that's an important thing to touch on as well, because
that instead of it just being entirely random, we kind of have an intention for our namaskar. We can, and that's the beauty of Surya Namaskar. It's like the intention is to honor the solar energy. It's not to so much honor the sun, but to honor the solar energy within you. And so we can take that same thing. We could do a namaskar around the water element. We could do a namaskar around the air element. We could do a namaskar around prana vayu, opening and expanding. We could do a namaskar around apana vayu, that's grounding and energies moving down. And so we can pick an aspect of nature, an aspect of us, an aspect of energy, and we can create a namaskar around that. And so it allows us to move forward with our practice whilst honoring the tradition. To remain in devotion whilst continuing to explore reality and how it presents itself to us. And so I hope that you felt that in practice today. I hope that you felt, at least in some way, shape or form, that flow state where you could drop into your breath and you could just be with the movements and you could be with your body. I'd be interested to know how you went with this morning's practice, because the climate that we're in right now is like monsoon season India. It's very hot. It's like 35 degrees and it's very muggy and humid. And so for us, we were covered in sweat. But when we were at home in Melbourne, it's the middle of winter and it's quite dry and quite cold. And so a practice like that is actually really nourishing for the body, because it really warms us up. I'd almost say that in this climate, it was maybe a little bit too much for us, but as is the as is the reality of it.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, yeah, if you guys have any questions, we kind of wanted to open up this secondary practice and philosophy session as a conversation. So you can tell us how you went with the practice. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. We can engage in some kind of conversation. And yeah, we'll continue with this day in and day out for the next 7 days.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. Okay. Final thing is, it's a surprise for you. I wanted to call these sessions practice and philosophy sessions to get you used to your new initials, PP.
Oh my God.
Paige and I have been having this battle where she doesn't like my last name, Petty, and so if we were to get married...
I do not like the last name, I just don't think it goes with my name.
If we were to get married, her name would be Paige Petty, and she doesn't want to be the PP girl. And so I thought if I called this practice and philosophy sessions each day, it would get her a little bit more comfortable with the PP aphorism. And anyway, that's why we're calling it PP.
We're not calling it PP.
Okay, Hari Om.
If you are interested in learning more, keep following along the challenge. We have 6 more days of practice, 6 more days of philosophy and discussions. So we can't wait to have you follow us along with for the next week.
And we've spent so much time with the podcast talking about yoga. We wanted to create a space where you guys who have been listening to the podcast, and we know that there's so many of you who have just hit almost 20,000 downloads. So we know there's people listening, and we wanted to give you an opportunity to actually come and practice with us in a little bit of an intensive period. So if you're up for the challenge, join the 7 days, do them 7 days in a row. It's only a 20-minute commitment. I know that you can do it. Get up a little bit earlier if you need to, or do it in the middle of the day, whatever time works for you. And as you get this opportunity to practice with us, maybe you'll be interested in practicing with us a little bit more. We have so many opportunities to practice. We have the online studio, we have online courses, we have in-person courses, and next year you'll be able to come here, right here to Rishikesh with us and maybe do your 200-hour or a retreat or something like this.
So make sure you sign up to our mailing list, follow all of our socials just so you can get first in notice of everything that we're up to in the next 12 months and beyond.
Okay. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Much love.